Hello everybody. In this video I want to talk with you about the future of Linux Mint and what are the hurdles in the near future and very far future for the Linux Mint team. And I would say, let's start. Yeah, I read the two last blog posts of the Linux Mint team. It's always very interesting and exciting to read on what the team is working on. And I would say, let's start with the first one. And these are the fastly powered repositories. Yeah, if you are using Linux Mint a longer time, then if you have done a great update, you experience very long download times because the Linux Mint servers are overloaded. Because yeah, Linux Mint has grown much in the last years, but the servers didn't. So they had to plan and to build a new download system for Linux Mint, especially a CDN, so-called Content Delivery Network. And they are working with Fastly, a company which is, I guess, doing only such things. So we can expect better download times in the future Linux Mint versions, but also, I guess, if we are doing the update of 21.3 to 22, which is coming, I guess, in about 2 months. And I'm very looking forward to it. So let's see how this will affect all Linux Mint versions. And I would say, let's move on to the next topic. And this is a new partnership with Datadog. Yeah, what is Datadog? They are doing everything about data, and they have analyzed how many downloads are happening from the download side of Linux Mint. So you also see here, we do not collect any telemetry inside the OS. This data comes only from the traffic on the download pages. So I would also say these aren't the only downloads in 1 month, because maybe other sites are also offering Linux Mint, and also you can download it via, for example, torrent. So yeah, let's see how these downloads are allocated. And at first we see the main edition of Linux Mint, Cinnamon, is downloaded over 42%, about 41,000 times. And also the Edge version, which is a Cinnamon version, we come with that to about 55% of the whole download metrics. Then XFCE is following with about 20,000 downloads, and then LMDE 6 and Marty are about the same with about 12,000 downloads. Yeah, in overall, we come up to 100,000 downloads at a month. And this is, I guess, a month where no big Linux Mint version has been released. So if we look to this data at a release cycles, then I guess these numbers will grow a lot larger. And I would suggest that we have about 2 million downloads every year, which makes it, maybe, this is just guessed, about 2 million Linux Mint users in the world. I would say this could be a valid number, but this number can also be much higher or much lower. For example, if we consider some school classes which are also using Linux Mint, then yeah, we have a lot more users per PC. So if we calculate the 2 million installations maybe about 2 or 3 times, then we are about at 5 or 6 million users. I would say this would be my guess. How many Linux Mint users are really out there? What's your opinion about that? Is your number a lot higher or lower? Just write it me into the comments. So yeah, we also see, okay, Cinnamon is the main edition. So I would also suggest that the Linux Mint team does the most effort on this Cinnamon version and the lowest effort on the Mate version. I would say if we have a look to the last updates of Linux Mint in the last years, then I would say this also is about the case, because I don't know any big update of Mate or some Mate function in Linux Mint since, yeah, 5 years, I would say. So yeah, quite interesting to see such data. And I would say, let's move further on to another topic. This is metrics, because Linux Mint is using IRC chats for helping each other in the community. And yeah, HexChat got discontinued. So the Linux Mint team started working on a new IRC client, which is called Jargonaut, I would say. It's already working. It's about 75% complete, but the community did a lot of suggestions especially for Matrix and Element. So they are now moving to Element and Matrix. They already have their Element space and Matrix rooms in there. So have a look to it. I already joined. You only need a Matrix account, for example, on appelement.io. There you can also create a new account in matrix.org. You can also continue with some other provider for your login. So this is very fast created, and I would say it's one of the best messengers out there. I already did a video about this in the last week. So if you haven't seen it yet, I will link it to you in the video description. So yeah, I would say let's move on to another topic. And this is quite more challenging for the Linux Mint team. And this is the cause why I'm doing this video. And we see here XApp should be independent. We see here Linux Mint is the largest consumer of XApp applications, but the reason XApp was created as a project was to make these applications work everywhere and for everybody. So Linux Mint started an XApp project some years ago, which should generalize many applications to fit into a special manner or order. So if we, for example, look to the settings module. Sorry, this is in German right now, but I guess this is irrelevant to show you the XApps. Let's head me over to XApps. This is the text editor. And if we head over to the settings, then we see there are many similarities between these applications. We have this sidebar on the left side. Also, if we have a look to Hypnotics, for example, yeah, is black, but this is a theme decision of Linux Mint. All multimedia apps are in the dark mode and all other apps are in the bright mode at the default. And we also see here this sidebar with very similar layout, for example, settings. And you can find these similarities on many different points of the XApps, and many XApps like XAT or Hypnotics or also Warpinator is also an XApp, got adopted by many other distributions, for example Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora or Arch. But the big success of the XApps is missing right now because many other distributions are maybe doing their own thing and maybe don't give these XApps a shot. And I would say, yeah, you can do a bit more with the XApps. For example, if we have a look to these windows here, for example, also with Pix, they are also looking quite different in their order, I would say. And also if we have a look to the settings of Pix, okay, yeah, the settings of Pix are also very similar. But yeah, there are also very many functions and layouts which are not as consistent I would personally wish. And also the XApps, for example, get some more functions under the hood. For example, if we head over to our text editor, and I can also open some favorites here. If I had any favorite, for example, I'm changing this to a favorite, then yeah, we have a favorite here. And then let's head over to file, and here we have the favorites, and I can open this file right from my text editor because this is a favorite. And we see that at many points there are cool innovations, but they are only used by Linux Mint at the time, or Cinnamon, so to say. So there's a lot to do, I would say, to make XApps further popular. But also XApps got a big problem because XApps are relying on GTK3. This is the window toolkit, I would say. With it, you can build new applications. For example, with the XApps or with GTK3, we can do a uniform theme. So if we have a look to Linux Mint right now, you see almost every app is looking in the Linux Mint theme. For example, if we also up Warpinator, for example, or also the document scanner, then we see, yeah, this is all looking in the Linux Mint theme. And for example, if we want to change the theme or the color just, then we can just do it in a click. And then every application has this new color scheme, which is, in my opinion, very great in many ways. And it feels like an uniformed operating system here. And this is one of the strengths of Linux Mint, to keep all together and to provide big functionality in many ways. So if we have a look to Ubuntu 24.4 with XFCE, so to say Xubuntu, then we see here are some differences between, for example, the document scanner and the actual document viewer. The actual document viewer is in the theme of XFCE, but the document scanner is in the libadwaita theme. This is the new theme of GTK4 on which the GNOME desktop is heavily relying on at the current time, and they moved many applications in the last 2 years to the new libadwaita theme, so they also have their own uniform, I would say. But this libadwaita has a big problem. You can't theme it anymore in any way. Ubuntu just got to bypass this problem by doing their own version of libadwaita with the Ubuntu theme. So what we see in the end, that GTK4 apps and GTK3 apps are together not quite compatible, and if you have to move all apps from GTK3 to GTK4, you have a lot of work to do, because GTK4 changed many behaviors and also some widgets, which makes it even harder to move on. And if you want to rely on libadwaita, then all themes we had until this day are useless, and Linux Mint don't want to let this happen. And also many other desktops, like for example Mate or XFCE, are having the same issues, because they are all relying on some GNOME apps. For example, the document scanner, it's the vanilla GNOME app, so to say. For example, we can also see it on the file roller or archive manager in German. And if we have a look to the about screen, we see an archive manager for GNOME. And yeah, they just took the complete archive manager and also are providing it with Linux Mint Cinnamon, because this is good enough. They don't have to do it on their own. And if they are doing everything on their own, they have very less resources to do new things and to evolve and to develop the Cinnamon further on with new innovating features. So I would say Linux Mint is relying, and many other distributions are relying on some basic apps. This is also completely okay, because if everyone would do every app on their own, we don't have any synergy effects, and this is important to keep them, I would say. But yeah, at the current time, Linux Mint can't really use or don't want to use these new apps, because they are ignoring every theme. Maybe dark and bright is okay, but the rest is ignored, and they don't really want to let this happen. Also, there are, for example, for some apps, for example, the calculator, some other options. So Clem writes, this is the chief developer of Linux Mint, I would say, to add this issue. Also, Mate apps such as Mate Calc work everywhere. They were designed for Mate. So if you open up the application menu and you don't see calculator in your Ubuntu desktop, but Mate calculator. Now, why this is partly our fault, because we never knocked on XFCE store and or worked with them. So Linux Mint wants to work with other desktops, especially XFCE. And also, just to get in the background, Clem, the chief developer of Linux Mint, also is one or was one of the maintainers of Mate desktop. So he was also within the project, but got thrown out of the Mate team about 6 months, I would say. Yeah, but with XFCE, Clem didn't had any communications. So he want to change this, and he is writing, they have the same problems as us, as Mate, as Bachi, as many other desktops. We made XApps because we need them in Mint, in Cinnamon. We didn't want to make Cinnamon apps, so we made Linux apps, which worked everywhere. We wrote it somewhere and we left it that. Yeah, so he says, okay, cool, we worked on general Linux apps, the so-called XApps, which aren't only for the Cinnamon desktop. They developed them, but didn't reach out to other desktops. Hey, do you want to use this app? Maybe we can work together on this app. What is for your desktop environment important for this app? Maybe we can work together on this. He says it was enough for us, these XApps, but it wasn't enough for Ubuntu or other desktops. From their point of view, they saw Linux Mint making some there in their own little corner and putting it on github.com Linux Mint, or even worse, they saw nothing at all. So yeah, this is very hard and very self-criticizing himself, but in a good manner, I would say. So in the end, he says XApp should be its own organization. So it should move out from Linux Mint with its own GitHub repositories, chat room, and so on. It should be a space which facilitates collaboration, compatibility, and the development of applications which are working everywhere. So Linux Mint want to move and want to push out XApp from themselves into an own organization to get them more popular and more adapted around the Linux world, because many other desktops are having the same problem as we see it here in this screenshot. And this makes it really independent, for example, to the GNOME desktop. And in my opinion, this is a great move Linux Mint is doing here. So he is inviting other developers and other projects to work together on a compatible software and common solutions. It needs to be independent of any desktop environment and any distribution, and for everyone equal. So yeah, he is starting there a new work group and maybe organization in the end. And this is quite promising for the future of many Linux distributions and desktops. Also, we already spoke about libadwaita for GNOME. So what is doing Linux Mint in 22? For example, if we head over to the document scanner, this document scanner at the time looks like Linux Mint and is in the Linux Mint theme as we had chosen, but in the new Ubuntu 24.4 versions on which Linux Mint 22 is depending and building up, these apps had changed to such a look at this, and they don't integrate in the desktop anymore. He downgraded these apps to old GTK3 versions. So for example, this is happening to Celluloid, the video player, the calculator, simple scan as we had seen it a moment ago. Also the Baobab app, this is the disk usage analyzer. Then we have the system monitor, the calendar, and also the file roller, and Sanity, which is a program for bash scripts to display some UI for simple installers or such things. So he says these applications are very likely to be forked in the near future, except for Sanity, which also Linux Mint stops using because it's very old. And so he says, yeah, GNOME is doing their own thing here. We have to move on and maybe to found an own organization where we maintain such apps in a kind of traditional manner with GTK3, because he says GTK3 is one of the best window toolkits out there. The Linux Mint team is very familiar to it and they want to use it further on because it's enough at the moment and also in the next years for Linux Mint. So they don't want to hop on to the GTK4 train anymore. And also if we have a look to some comments in the section down there, Clem wrote a lot. He also said, I don't think we'll move to GTK4 until it's clear we have a future with GTK. This is what is being discussed, for instance, right now for GTK5. For example, they are considering removing the GTK theme name setting, also to dropping completely X11. And Clem says, hey, we still want to support X11, and for the far future, he don't really know which toolkit to move on for graphics. For example, Qt could be a possibility, which KDE is using. Or also Flutter, for example, is a great opportunity. For example, Ubuntu switched on Flutter for the new apps, but a move from GTK3 to something beyond is a big decision because almost every app in Linux Mint at the current time is using GTK3. So if they want to move to a new toolkit, this takes about maybe 4 or 6 years to get everything into a new toolkit. And then, for example, on Flutter, we don't have any theming support yet, or any general theming support, so to say. And Linux Mint doesn't know at the time on which toolkit they want to move in the next maybe 10 or 20 years. He also says it's hard to predict where we'll be in 5 to 10 years, but right now we are very happy with GTK3. He wants to stay on GTK3. Some people might complement GTK with libs or fork it if it becomes useless, or they might join the GTK project and help them support what GNOME doesn't want to work. Who knows? He says the only thing that is for sure is that the things we need. When solutions disappear, the needs don't vanish. We find alternatives. Right now, many people need things which are no longer provided or being discussed and removed. It's hard to predict who will do what, who will follow on what and what will happen. But it's definitely the right time to start talking about it and getting people to understand each other a little bit more and to work more together on many points. And I would say this is a great initiative of the Linux Mint team. And if we have a look to the blog post 1 month later of May 2024, he says, the concerns voiced last month about GTK Advaita and libadwaita were heard. They were heard by many projects, including upstream apps, desktop environments, and distributions. They led to many discussions with a huge number of developers involved. So yeah, Linux Mint is a thing in the Linux world, and they are very powerful, even if they are only about maybe 5 people or 10 people which are working on that regularly. He says, I want to stress the fact that some of these discussions involve GNOME developers and they are very constructive. So we have seen here, yeah, GNOME is doing its own thing, for example, with the document scanner here, and the GNOME developers say now, hey, maybe let's have a look together. Maybe we can still work together in the future and find a solution with which everyone is happy about. The GNOME developers, but also other developers from the desktop environments of Mate, XFCE, and Cinnamon, of course. Although no big decisions or solutions emerged yet there, so yeah, they are quite still talking, is a general consensus on the issues of cross-desktop environment compatibility and independence from the GNOME project. There's also consensus on the idea of working together on common technologies. So what he is saying here, okay, the XApp institution organization maybe is coming in the next months. I'm very looking forward to it. And also some independence of the GNOME project is also happening, that maybe both groups can work more freely on different points, but also maybe on some other points are working together. For example, in the GNOME online accounts apps, which connects many desktops with Nextcloud, Google, and Microsoft. I would guess, for example, such an app will be used together with GNOME, but maybe other apps, for example, the file roller or a video app, maybe won't have any similarities in the future. So this is my call on this. And yeah, what are you thinking about this change of desktops on Linux Mint? And I hope you found it interesting to look behind the scenes of Linux Mint and the Linux Mint development. Also, there are coming some cool new features in the Linux Mint version. For example, the unverified Flatpak option, which is by default disabled. So you won't find Google Chrome at the beginning of Linux Mint. You have to, if you want, show unverified Flatpaks, but they say this is not recommended because this is not the main company which is distributing it. For example, Google Chrome isn't published by Google on Flatpak. It's done by some community members, and Linux Mint only wants official apps in their app store. And I can really understand that, especially for the security, because yeah, the Linux Mint team also has a big responsibility over many users. So I can really understand that. Yeah, what do you think about the future of Linux Mint, the different desktop environments? Which is your favorite desktop environment, and which option do you choose or would you choose in the position of Linux Mint? Just let it me know in the comment section. If you found this video helpful and interesting, please leave a like and subscribe to Linux Ort. We are doing videos every week around Linux, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, also some other distributions. So it would be a pleasure for me to see you in the next one. And until that, have a nice day. Bye.